My name is Bila Modoni, the CEO of Bila Modoni Foundation, and today we are here to talk about the challenges that people face, especially in their higher education. And what do I mean by higher education? This is the after Form 4, we have people who go to tertiary levels, or maybe after class 8, they go to tertiary levels. We have several institutions that offer this higher education. There's some people who opt to go to vocational training centers. Other people go to universities, colleges, any other higher institution in our country, Kenya. And for a very long time that we have been complaining about education, especially in our country, Kenya. But before I get to the challenges, I would love to congratulate and thank everybody who has taken this noble course that we are running in our county, Muranga. That is the menstrual awareness campaign. As the CEO, I'm very happy, even for the team. They are doing their good job. So we are going to all the counties, the sub-counties in Muranga County. So far we have gone to Kandara, Kegumo, and Kiharu. We have 4 more sub-counties remaining. And the last day is going to be at where I come from, Madhyoya, where we are going to celebrate World Menstrual Day. And welcome you all, and thank you so much for those people who have taken this noble course. So there's some of the challenges that we are really undergoing as the students of the higher institution or higher education. And some of these challenges are financial constraints. What do I mean by financial constraint? This is whereby many students, they struggle to pay tuition fees, the accommodation fees, and this is going to disrupt their studies. So, for example, we have frequent strikes in our institution. For example, just to name, sometimes you can hear like Moi University, Nairobi University, they are striking. Why? Due to the rise in loan disbursements from the Higher Education Loan Board, that is the HELB. We also have another model that was introduced in our country that is called the New Model Funding System. And some, at a point, I tend to think that this model funding system is really confusing us and is really not doing us justice, because it is classified into 4 parts, not to name them. So you find some of these things, they are, well, it's a good initiative that the government is trying to bring. But you have to do public participation. You have to let people understand what is this model funding system, because, like, for example, my parents don't understand about that. They only know about HELB. So when you tell them about the new model funding system, you tend to not understand what it is. And for example, if I want to get the funds from the model funding system, I have to they have to check that where I belong, whether it's the vulnerable class, the first class, second. Financial constraints, it's one of the challenges that these high school higher education students are facing. So maybe the government could release the education funds on time. For example, the HELB, the model funding, they could release them on time, because if they don't release these on time, you find that some students are even deferring when they are on their last year. You also have the rise in bursaries. For example, you find some member of parliament, they do not want to release the bursaries on time. And so you find most of the comrades, they are deferring their studies. Maybe they are due to the exam, they have no school fees, the only hope was the bursaries. And some of these members of parliament, they tend to think bursary is kind of a charity. No, these are our tax, because in this in the current world, I tend to understand, or I tend to think that we should be getting free education as taxpayers. But what do we see? Some of our members of parliament, they don't release the bursaries on time. They don't want to make education free. But I really thank His Excellency, Honorable Dindi Nyoro, the MP Kiharu. You find that, especially when it comes to high school, though it's not a high education, those people, they don't strain, especially the day scholars. They don't strain when it comes to paying their school fees. Why? Because Dindi Nyoro is making the education free. He's making life very easy for the parents in Kiharu. Why don't other MPs emulate such things? So financial constraint is one of the things that is really challenging our comrades, those who are taking the higher education. There's another thing that we call limited infrastructure and resources. So in this one, you find that we have insufficient or outdated infrastructures that affect us negatively or affect the students negatively. For example, you tend to get that you taking a course that you need some lab things, artwork, but you don't have the equipment. You don't have the resources to do that. So the moment you are going to do your interview, maybe after you complete your studies, you don't have an idea. You have never seen, for example, a ruler that you are supposed to be using when constructing. You have never seen, maybe for those who take orthopedics and trauma, you have never seen a skeleton. So even understanding the anatomy of the human body, it becomes so hard for you. So limited infrastructures and resources is really a challenge in our institution. We have something we call quality and relevance of education. This is whereby the curricula in Kenyan university, they often lack alignment with the current labor market demands. For example, graduates from courses such as arts and humanities, they have higher unemployment rates due to saturation and less market relevance compared to things like ICT, engineering. So, the quality and the relevance of education, it's good the government to embrace. If these are the people who, for example, the people who are taking arts and humanity course, the government should really try hard to get chances for this graduate. And that's why people end up committing suicide after university, college, or any other institution. We have graduate unemployment and underemployment. This is whereby the graduates struggle, as I have said before. The graduates struggle to find matching the employment matching their qualifications. So, for example, a high percentage of university graduates, they are forced into informal sector jobs. For instance, many degree holders operate like, for example, boda, the motorbikes, the small scale business. I'm not saying they are bad job. They're actually good as long as you're bringing something on the table. But you find we do not have employment. These people should be working. If you're a teacher, you should be working in a school. You should be helping the students, the pupils to get more wisdom. But you find there is no unemployment. And in this case, you find that, for example, personally have done orthopedic and trauma medicine. You find some of the HOD in a hospital are even above retirement. And for example, for me, like a youth, I cannot even get an opportunity to work in that hospital. But these old elites, let me say old elites, they are still working there. So the young people do not have a chance to work in such facilities. So I think there should be a way. For example, we had the government saying they are taking people abroad for a job. They had to give some cash to the government so that they can take them to jobs abroad. But what happened? I remember someone was saying that there's someone in Kenya who said that UK should not employ nurses because Kenya we have reduced number of nurses. But what is happening? When you go in the villages, in town, you find most of the people are nurses but they are unemployed. So we should find market for them and not frustrating them. When we frustrate people, they eventually get mental disorder. And when people get mental disorder, who are going to vote for you? Nobody is coming to vote for you because we are all frustrated. We have technology barriers. This one is whereby we have limited internet to access and poor ICT infrastructures hindering digital learning research. For example, I remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, students from rural universities, not to mention them, they really struggled because they had to go for the online maybe studies. They really struggled. So if you don't have the Wi-Fi, you cannot access to Wi-Fi. You are not going to understand what is happening, especially in your school. If people have an online examination, you cannot get to their class, maybe because you don't have the data bundles. We have student welfare and mental health issues, I have said before, whereby you find graduates are even getting mental disorders because we have so many cases that are increasing because of stress, depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions among students. For example, I have said before, suicidal thoughts, instances of suicide, and mental health crises. There have been so many in some of the institutions, of the universities, colleges, the vocational training center. And this is due to lack of academic pressure and lack of adequate counseling services maybe in their schools. So student welfare and mental health issue should really be a very key thing to be looked on, because you are finding so many people are suffering depression in our institution, in universities, but the school is not having even counselors to guide them. So you find people are not even, I cannot open up to my friend because I'm afraid he or she might go telling other people. So it's very important, the government, to look about student welfare and mental health issues. We also have social and issue vices. For example, substance abuse, peer influence, involvement in negative behaviors and they end up impacting poor academic results. For example, there are so many reports of widespread of alcohol and drug abuse in our universities. So you find most of the comrades, out of their frustrations, they end up getting the substance abuse. So there should be really a social issue that is being addressed accordingly. We have political interference and instability, and this is a very challenge that is rising in our country. Students in politics, maybe for example, they cause instabilities and disruption of the calendars. Not to dwell on this so much, it's very good because we are the youth and we want to have a better tomorrow, so we must engage ourselves in politics. But again, how are we engaging ourselves in this politics? Do not let politics interfere with your academics. Just go and have your politics in a good way that is not going to interfere with your academic. So you find people go to strike or the political activism, and this one, the influence or the closure of institutions. For example, recently, seeing a certain school was about to be closed down because of political differences. So we should be really in politics, but we have the right way to do it. Another challenge that is really facing us as the comrades or the high institution education students, accessibility and equity challenges. What do I mean by this? For example, we talk about the marginalized areas. They really face a very bad economical disadvantage, or the marginalized students. What do I mean by the marginalized students? For example, we have marginalized community in our country. Place where your country you cannot get access to, we have said about technological barrier. You cannot get access to good infrastructure, the classroom. So the equity and changes, the board that is maybe the board that is really responsible for university students, you find that these people are not having a good place to study. We have limited resources in those marginalized communities. For example, the places where we call them pastoralites in the northern part of Kenya. Not to name them, but places like Turkana, Marsabit, due to historical disadvantage, and these may lead to poor education. The government should be very equitable when it comes to even the marginalized community. And because we have talked about the challenges, are there possible ways to combat these challenges? For example, what is the recommendation the government or we as the student we should address to these challenges? For example, we talk about funding systems. So what do we do about this? There should be an increasing funding and timely disbursement of financial aid when it comes to help, when it comes to model funding, when it comes to bursaries. Let the government release these funds on time. Let them release to every applicant, the university students who applied them. So increase funding, the funding that was set aside for higher education, let it be increased so that we can have a very good program that is learning in our institution. We also have improvement of infrastructures. For example, let me talk about ICT. Maybe there should be expansion of ICT facilities. For example, if it comes to, when we come to laboratories, if we had a very small space for the lab students. Maybe we should increase it. So this is what we are talking about, improvement of infrastructure. We have curricular reforms. What do I mean by this? We have to align ourselves with labor market needs. We align our courses with the labor market. You as a comrade, don't just apply a course kushtua kijiji. We call it kushtua kijiji. No, align yourself with the labor market in our country because we don't want to suffer in the near future. We have establishment and enhancement of counseling and mental health support system. As I said before, so many people are going into depression, anxiety, panics, stress. They end up committing suicide. Why? Because we do not have the support system for counseling and mental health. So it's good to increase the support system in our country. We have improving governance, maybe through transparent administrative practices. So you have to be transparent to the comrades. Tell them what is happening in our country. Tell them what is happening when it comes to funding. We also have enhanced internet connectivity and digital resources. As I said, people in the marginalized community, for example, during COVID-19, personally I did my studies online and I really struggled because sometimes I didn't have enough data bundles. I did not have an access to Wi-Fi. So if we can have an enhanced internet connectivity in our areas, this will really boost our academic because we will not miss any of these exam courses that are online. Maybe we also have promotion of equitable access, especially I said the marginalized communities, Turkana, those area, Marsabit. Can we have something that those people in Mount Kenya and those people in Rift Valley are getting, that these people in Turkana can also get? There's a way we can do things. So let the government help us to cover some of these things because I know it's possible. And let's put things into transparent. Let's make education very easy for our comrades because I remember during Moi Kibaki's time, education was not expensive because Moi Kibaki, the president, the late Moi Kibaki, he used to pay people on time when it comes to coffee, when it comes to tea, when it comes to, for example, those people, anything that the cash crops that people are selling, milk, he used to pay at a good range. So you find our parents who are not struggling when it comes to education. But now, look at the situation in our country. When I have 2 kids or 3 kids in high school or university, I am almost getting mad because of mental health, because I do not have the money or the finances to educate them. And what happens? They drop out. So when people drop out, what kind of a country are we going to have in the near future? We are going to be illiterate. So let the government really make education free for every student because we are taxpayers. For example, in the developed country like UK, let's not talk about the developed country. Let's talk about Ghana or Burkina Faso. Education is free. What makes us, as in our country, Kenya, not have education that is free? We are really struggling when it comes to education. When it comes to delivering things to our high school students, primary school, and also the